Hey, so today in this episode, I'm going to be talking to you guys about all things egress windows. This is something that I wish I was a little more well versed on or aware of before I started the project, just because the requirements for houses built in the 70s, 80s, or anytime before now, they all change when you build your houses, and it's by state. Colorado's a by county state, so all the laws are kind of determined by the counties. Here, I found out that the 3-bedroom windows were too small to be egress windows by today's standard. I'm not sure when that changed or if the inspectors cared when this house was built, but I needed about 6 inches more by 48 inches of square footage in order to meet egress. So the egress requirement here in Colorado is 5.7 square feet of area to actually climb out of. That is going to be, we ended up getting casement windows, which is one fixed panel on the side, and then you have a big panel that swings out. And this 5.7 square feet is on that part that swings out. So you also need a certain distance from the ground and a certain width. So you can't just have a long skinny window, and you can't have like a big window at the top of a wall. It started in New York pretty much, where all buildings were required to have fire escapes. That was like the start of like, hey, if this building is on fire, everyone needs to be able to get out in a manner where they're not just jumping out of the building. Because if one path is blocked, then, you're kind of screwed. If you're in your bedroom and you don't have a window to climb out of, and a fire is blocking the door, or you have to get out and you can't because the door is blocked for any reason, you got to be able to climb out of your window, basically. I think the inspectors are pretty lenient on first floor windows, but I'm not really sure. And I worked with the window store to meet egress in all the rooms that we needed, which were really just the bedrooms. It's any dwellings that need it. But like I said, it's because if you need to escape, you can. I get it. There's been multiple events that kind of like push more stringent egress laws, which a lot of them are like big club fires that create kind of this panic and stampede of people that push against doors that open in, and then you can't you get crushed up against those doors. There was a big, in the documentary, there was an instance where everyone was trying to leave and got trampled for that same reason. So egress is important for maintaining lives. In a residential home, it's required for, especially for Airbnb type stuff, where if anything bad happens, you're gonna get sued. And also just to keep guests alive, I guess. But I just worked with the window company that I'm using, Mariposa Windows in Salida. They were great. I told them I didn't want to widen the windows at all, because if you widen your windows, then you have to change your window trimmers and headers, and that means you need to shore up what the headers are supporting if it's on a load-bearing wall. And I really didn't want to do that. So what we ended up doing was switching to those casement windows and dropping the sills about 6 inches, which I'll show you in a second. The other bedroom was a strange rough opening, which after I opened it up, I realized we had a little more space to work with. But we ended up going with a single casement and not a opening on the side, or not a fixed pane on the side, and I had to reframe that to be skinnier, which kind of sucks, but whatever. We're working with how they built the house, which was a little strange. Anyway, the point is, the requirement of egress could be a real bummer in your build. If you have to shore up those load-bearing walls and reframe your walls, it's a big deal. Luckily, I had the walls open already to some extent. On the exterior, I was redoing the sheathing So it was really easy to just cut on both sides and then patch in a tiny little strip of 1/2 inch sheathing on the outside. And the interior, I just cut the drywall down. It was super easy. If I had to go reframe the walls and shore up the walls, I would have had to take off the drywall on the interior. If I wasn't taking the exterior off, like, you have to open everything up. So if you're not stripping your house down to the studs, it's gonna be a pretty intrusive thing. And especially if you're not taking siding off or weren't planning on it, you gotta take your siding off, cut your siding back, trim out the window, recaulk everything. It's a real pain if you have to reframe those windows. So this is just all to be something to be aware of when hey, we're gonna plan an Airbnb, and if these windows don't meet egress, this is gonna be a huge cost to the project. So I just wanted to cover how I reframed the windows in a full episode, because this can be a really impactful circumstance if you do buy a house and want to turn it into an Airbnb. Definitely something to be aware of and keep in mind. Luckily, like I said, I just had to move the sill plates down and kind of frame inward rather than outward. But if you're in a circumstance that's going to cause you to have to frame outward, it's going to be a bigger deal, and that has to factor into your price. So here it is. Here's how I did it. Good luck. Thanks for watching. All right, so I got my new skinnier opening centered in the wall now, which will involve bringing it this way a little bit. Now I'm going to take out these sills, probably just transfer this over somewhere to a new sill, because this is ugly. And then I'm going to build the window inside of that.
Like the two boat ends against each other are kind of stiffening it a little bit, right?
Yeah. So I'm gonna throw some studs on the outside just so I can get the sheathing on. Just some like scrap, but these ones are nice and square for the window to sit in. That should be good. Okay, so the lighting's probably terrible right now, but I am in the one bedroom that I have kind of sort of started to finish just so I can stay at the property. So these beds are actually what's gonna go in the finished product. The walls need another coat, but we got wallpaper going on this wall as soon as I can finish the window. So what I'm gonna show you today is how, and I'll show you from the outside, but how I am making these bedroom windows that currently do not meet the current code of egress. They just need to be a little bit bigger. And I worked with the window company to lower, or grow them lengthwise instead of width, so you don't have to mess with the header or anything, which turned out to be, it's way easier than reframing your entire header and wall and everything. So I'll show you just how to take these cripple studs out and lower the bottom plate, and then you're good to go for code and Airbnb and whatnot. So inside, I got it all plasticed off because, like I said, I'm staying in that room right now. I don't want to get dust. Outside, I'm about to sheathe over this way with our zip bar system, and I'm gonna cut this down to the new rough opening dimension plus 1.5 inches, and honestly plus a little bit more, and I'll just patch it in with some 1/2 inch sheathing just to match the depth of everything here. But for now, I'm gonna pull off this window and reframe the bottom plate and the cripple studs. All right, so I got the exterior sheathing off. Now what I'm gonna do is they had a little spacer up there, kind of tying in the header or making a flat surface. I don't know. I usually just frame the header in and then just attach my window to that. So don't really need that 1/2 inch spacer. What I'm gonna do is measure from the bottom of the header down to my rough opening is 42 1/4. So I'll make a mark there and mark it, but really I need to cut 1.5 inches below that. So just for sanity purposes is that first mark. Second mark is gonna be 43 3/4, which is gonna give the 1.5 inches extra to accommodate the bottom plate. And then I'll cut all these cripples there and move this bottom plate. I'm gonna cut a new bottom plate because this is it's got a lot of water damage in it, but that's the plan. Just trying to make sure as I put the screws in these cripple studs that since they're completely loose, they end up being flush with the outside and the inside of the building. Again, lumber right now is just so terrible. Dude, it's insane. Okay, well, I got to patch in this 1/2 inch ply because that's how they framed it. It's gonna be 42 3/16 by 4.
Kitchen stuff on?
Yeah.
I gotta move it. Do you care where I move it? Or?
No, yeah, we'll just move it back once you get the floor. Do you need help?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll be in a second. So it's kind of piecemealed together here, but I filled all this in. I lost it for a second because GoPro kind of sucks. Just saying. This is all just 1/2 inch that I filled in to meet the depth of this blackboard. Put a new sill plate on for our window to sit on. I also filled in the ply that they did because our window got deeper. So the important part, and I'll do a rundown on like what egress is and everything. The important part is now we have 5.7 square feet of window to actually climb out of. And this is gonna be a casement window, so it's gonna have a pane, I think on the left side here, and then the open, or the right side will actually swing out and allow you to climb out in case there's the boogeyman or something in there, or a fire. You know, it may seem like changing the size of your windows is going to be a huge pain, no pun intended, but if you kind of work with the window company to make sure that you're expanding deeper rather than side to side, unless your window's getting smaller, which is the case on that 3rd bedroom, which I'll show you too, it's really not that hard. If you got everything open, it's not that bad. If you don't have anything open, it's gonna be pretty bad. But that's it.